And now behold, my beloved brethren, I suppose that ye ponder somewhat in your hearts concerning that which ye should do after ye have entered in by the way. But behold, why do ye ponder these things in your hearts? Do ye not remember that I said unto you that after ye had received the Holy Ghost ye could speak with the tongue of angels? And now, how could ye speak with the tongue of angels, save it were by the Holy Ghost? Angels speak by the power of the Holy Ghost, wherefore they speak the words of Christ. Wherefore I said unto you, feast upon the words of Christ. For behold, the words of Christ will tell you all things that ye should do.
As he's speaking to the people, right, he's like maybe sensing some confusion among the people, right, as he's talked through all this, like they don't know really what to do or how to do it. And so he says, what's the confusion about? Right? I just told you that when you give your life to the Lord, you're baptized, you receive the Holy Ghost, now you speak with the tongue of angels. And as it says here in verse 2 or 3, it says, angels speak by the power of the Holy Ghost. Which, again, I don't know if you ever heard it really phrased quite that way. Right? It says, angels speak by the power of the Holy Ghost. So they speak the words of Christ. So, likewise, we would speak by the power of the Holy Ghost and speak the words of Christ. So that's why it says you're speaking with the tongue of the angels. It doesn't mean you're speaking like an angel, but you're speaking in a similar way that the angels do and by the same motivator, which is the Holy Ghost. Right? So it's further defining what we talked about in the previous chapter, right? What it means to speak with the tongue of angels, that you're speaking with the power of the Holy Ghost. And when you speak that way, and I'm pretty sure we've all experienced it, if you're talking to somebody, about the Lord or about the church or about what God has done for you, you may find yourself speaking in a way like, where do those words even come from? Right? You may express yourself in a way that wouldn't be your normal way of expressing yourself even, that you may just suddenly have some added wisdom or some added insight to share with somebody. Where did that come from? Right? Well, it came from the Holy Ghost. And that's, you're speaking with the tongue of an angel. You're saying things that weren't coming from you, but coming from God, by the power of the Holy Ghost.
Wherefore, now after I have spoken these words, if ye cannot understand them, it will be because ye ask not, neither do ye knock. Wherefore ye are not brought into the light, but must perish in the dark. For behold, again I say unto you that if ye will enter in by the way, and receive the Holy Ghost, it will show unto you all things which ye should do. Behold, this is the doctrine of Christ, and there will be no more doctrine given until after he shall manifest himself unto you in the flesh. And when he shall manifest himself unto you in the flesh, the things which he shall say unto you shall ye observe to do.
So in 4 it says, okay, now I've told you what you need to do, right? And you need to now seek out the Lord yourself. That's why it says if you don't know what to do, it's because you haven't asked or knocked or anything. You haven't sought out the Lord in your life. So it says, therefore you don't come into the light, but you're just going to stay in the dark. So the reason, of course, he says that is because everybody has to do it for themselves. Right? When we teach people here about finding the Lord and about repenting and being baptized, everybody has to make their own choice. See, we can't make it for somebody else. We can't say, okay, this is my, you're my child, so today you're going to get baptized, okay? Because I said so, right? Or because you're 8 years old, so now it's time for you to do this, right? Nobody dictates that it's going to happen. Everybody has to decide for themselves. Everybody has to seek the Lord themselves and have their own calling and their own entrance into through the gate. Right? So that's why it's saying in 4, it says if you're not there, it means you haven't asked, you haven't sought to come into that. Right? And then in 5, if you do, then you get the Holy Ghost, and then it teaches you what you need to do. Right? So it'll show unto you all things which you should do. Now in 6 it says that this is the doctrine of Christ, right? And what I've taught up until now, and there'll be no more given until the time that he manifests himself unto you in the flesh. Now, does anybody know when that's going to be? It'll be about 540 years after this, right? Okay, right, that's what he's referring to, right? So he's teaching ahead of time, and he says, so this is what we know as of now, because this is what's been revealed to me, and so there's not going to be anything more given until he comes himself, and then he'll talk more about, his place and what he wants to do and so forth.
And now I, Nephi, cannot say more. The Spirit stoppeth mine utterance, and I am left to mourn because of the unbelief and the wickedness and the ignorance and the stiff-neckedness of men. For they will not search knowledge, nor understand great knowledge, when it is given unto them in plainness, even as plain as word can be. And now, my beloved brethren, I perceive that ye ponder still in your hearts, and it grieveth me that I must speak concerning this thing. For if ye would hearken unto the Spirit, which teacheth a man to pray, ye would know that ye must pray. For the evil spirit teacheth not a man to pray, but teacheth him that he must not pray. But behold, I say unto you that ye must pray always, and not faint, that ye must not perform anything unto the Lord, save in the first place ye shall pray unto the Father in the name of Christ, that he will consecrate thy performance unto thee, that thy performance may be for the welfare of thy soul.
Right, so in 7, right, it's just pointing out that after all the teaching, there'll still be those who won't listen. Right, as he says, I'm left to mourn because the unbelief and the wickedness, ignorance, stiff-neckedness of people. Right, that I tell them exactly what they need to do to be saved, and then they still won't do it. Right, we all experience it. Right, plenty of times. I'm sure again we all know people who really need the Lord in their life and really need to change their life, and won't do it. Right, they just refuse. And we even occasionally have people come here that we preach to them and it bounces right off. Right, doesn't penetrate, and it can be frustrating, but everybody has free will, so everybody does what they feel they want to do, or not. All right, so he says, I'm frustrated by it, but I'm teaching what I need to teach, and this is who accepts, and who doesn't. All right, now in 8 and 9, right, he's saying if you want the Spirit of God to lead you, if you want to be blessed in the things that you do, you need to do what?
Pray.
You need to pray. Right? You need to pray before you do these things. Okay, it says that, and in fact in 8 it says that if the Spirit will always teach you to pray. It'll always tell you to pray. So if something is telling you not to pray, that's not the Spirit speaking. Right? And so and perhaps at times we've been discouraged about praying or whatever, feel that we can't do that, or and sometimes people get down in their life and that they have a hard time with it. We'll just understand it's not going to be the Spirit of God telling you not to pray. Right? So that we can recognize that it will be the enemy saying not to pray, because the Spirit always wants us to pray, and that says that before doing anything, right? And I guess that's in 9. It says that you must pray always and not faint, and not perform anything unto the Lord, save in the first place you pray unto the Father in the name of Christ. All right, so that before we would try to do anything, especially anything of importance, you want to pray about it first. That the Lord might bless you in that the Holy Ghost might lead you. That there's choices to be made, you're making the right choices, right? And certainly, any kind of an important conversation, you want to pray before you do that. I mean, if I'm going to, make a phone call to somebody to talk to them about the church or about the Lord, I would always, pray before doing that. This way, as you have a conversation, the Lord directs your words. But anything important in your life, you want to pray first. Certainly before taking on things like a job change or a relocation or anything, of any importance. You want to pray that God directs in the right way. All these kind of things. You pray that the Lord might be with you, and then he does. Then the Spirit leads you. Right? I mean, we always pray at the beginning of our church meetings, right? And it's not because that's because it's this time. That means it's time to say the opening prayer. I mean, we do it for a reason. We ask God to lead us in our speaking, in our teaching, in our testifying, in our praying, singing, whatever it is that we do, because we mean it. Right? We want the Holy Ghost to lead us in what we do. This way, the Spirit of God is felt by the people. So yeah, you pray before you do anything. I mean, it sounds basic, and you say, well, of course we pray. Everybody knows that, right? But yeah, we want to pray before we do these kind of things because we want the Holy Ghost to lead and direct us in those things.